Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're taking you all the way to Graceland. But we're not just taking the standard tour today.
Right.
We're going behind the scenes with Elvis Presley's cousin, Billy Smith.
Okay.
Now, Billy wasn't just family, he was actually part of the infamous Memphis Mafia.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, less Goodfellas and more of like a rock and roll entourage, I guess, would be a way to put it.
Right.
I mean, these guys were friends, confidants, employees, all rolled into one.
Right.
And, their stories really give us this incredible perspective that I think a lot of fans don't get.
Yeah, it's so true. And for this deep dive, we're pulling from a YouTube video uploaded to the Memphis Mafia Kid channel.
Okay, cool.
And in this interview, Billy actually spills the tea on everything from Elvis's hobbies to debunking some of those wild Graceland rumors that are out there.
I love it.
I mean, he really opens up.
It's a real chance to see the human side of this guy, right?
Well,
legend.
oh, absolutely. And one thing that really surprised me off the bat was that Elvis wasn't really an outdoorsman. You'd kind of picture him like hunting and fishing.
Right.
But not so much.
Yeah.
In fact, Billy joked that the only hunting Elvis did was for girls, girls, girls.
He even slipped in that movie title.
He did. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's just, it's easy to forget that even a larger-than-life figure like Elvis had those simple tastes.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
Billy also talked about Elvis's TV habits.
Oh, yeah.
He's a huge fan of football
Oh, wow.
and boxing.
Yeah.
And he loved watching Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
Pretty relatable.
Totally, totally. But wait, there's more. He was also a huge Twilight Zone fan.
Ooh, now that is fascinating. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Yeah.
It kind of suggests this whole other side to Elvis we don't often hear about, like maybe he had this philosophical side or, an attraction to the mysterious.
Right, right.
What do you think it says about him?
Well, it makes me think that there was so much more to him, than what we see on the surface. And,
Right.
it really makes me wonder what other things he was into that we just don't know about.
Oh, for sure.
And, Billy also addressed that persistent rumor about the secret tunnel at Graceland.
Oh, yeah. The one that was supposedly inspired by JFK.
Yes.
President Kennedy's tunnel.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. And, he really had me going there for a minute.
Oh, he knows how to build suspense.
He does.
He plays along with the idea for a little bit.
He does.
And then finally he's like, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
It's all a joke.
Yeah.
But, it's such a good reminder to not believe everything you hear, right?
Right. Especially when it comes to figures like Elvis.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
So speaking of interesting details, Billy actually sets the record straight about why he ended up leaving Graceland.
Yeah.
Because there are these rumors going around that Vernon Presley, Elvis's dad, evicted him.
Yeah, that's a pretty serious accusation.
It is. So what did Billy have to say about it?
Well, he made it clear that it wasn't an eviction at all.
Right.
It was actually about the overwhelming grief that he felt after Elvis's death.
Gosh, it's hard to imagine what that must have been like, working with Elvis every day and then suddenly having to deal with this absence in a place that's so full of memories.
Yeah, and Billy actually talks about how hard it was to even be at Graceland.
Oh, really?
To see Elvis's office, every single day.
Yeah.
And just to feel his presence, even though he was gone.
Yeah.
It really brings to light the human impact of Elvis's death.
Yeah.
And that's something we don't often consider.
No, we really don't. It goes so far beyond the loss of a celebrity.
Right.
This was about personal grief.
Of course.
People who knew him and loved him, and it must have been so difficult to process.
Definitely. And, in that context, it makes perfect sense why Billy left Graceland.
Yeah.
It wasn't about a fight or anything like that. It was
Yeah.
about coping with this devastating loss.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really does put things into perspective, doesn't it?
It does.
We see the public grieving this icon, but Billy's giving us that glimpse into the personal pain behind the headlines.
Right. And imagine the weight that the Memphis Mafia had on their shoulders. Right. They're dealing with their own grief, trying to protect Elvis's legacy, and they're facing this constant scrutiny from fans and the media.
Yeah, it had to be a really tough time for them. And it makes you wonder just how different was their experience of Elvis's life and especially his death compared to what the public perceived.
It's such an interesting question.
Yeah.
The world saw this superstar, but they saw the man behind the myth.
Mm-hmm.
They knew his little quirks, his vulnerabilities, the things that made him laugh and the things that troubled him.
Yeah, it's such a good reminder that there's always more to the story than just those headlines.
Right.
And that, our relationships really shape how we see the world, even when it comes to someone as famous as Elvis.
Absolutely. And, there's another detail in the interview that speaks to this idea, these hidden connections.
Oh, okay.
Towards the end, Billy mentions this friend named Jerry Cochran, and he calls him a singer-songwriter that he'd known since like 1959.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. Why does that name sound so familiar?
Well, Jerry Cochran wasn't just any singer-songwriter.
Oh.
He was a rockabilly pioneer,
Oh, wow.
known for hits like "Come On Everybody."
Okay.
And tragically, he died in a plane crash in 1960, along with another rising star, Eddie Cochran.
Wait a minute, is this the same plane crash that Buddy Holly was in the day the music died?
That's the one. And Elvis was known to be like deeply affected by that tragedy.
Wow, so that adds like a whole other layer to Billy's story.
It does.
It's like this hidden echo of loss.
Yeah.
You know, something that must have resonated throughout Elvis's entire life and career. It really makes you think what other unspoken stories and influences shaped his world.
Right. It's a great reminder that even in a deep dive like this, we're really just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
There are layers upon layers to uncover.
Oh, for sure.
And the more we learn, the more questions we have.
Absolutely. And honestly, Billy's interview really brings all of this to life. So if anyone wants to explore this further, highly recommend checking out the Memphis Mafia Kid YouTube channel. It's just a treasure trove of firsthand accounts and insights.
Definitely worth a look. It's a great example of how personal stories can really enrich our understanding of history and challenge those narratives that we think we know.
It's so true. So what are some of your key takeaways from our deep dive today? What's really sticking with you?
Well, I think we've gained this much more nuanced perspective on Elvis. Seeing him as a human being with simple pleasures and these kind of unexpected interests rather than just this rock and roll icon.
Right.
And we've been reminded of the lasting impact his death had on those closest to him, that personal grief that went so far beyond the public mourning.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point. We often focus on the celebrity's story, but we forget about those ripples of their lives and losses on the people around them.
Right.
It really makes you wonder, how can we apply this insight to how we view other public figures?
It's a great question to think about. It's a reminder that there's always more to the story than what we see on the surface.
Yeah.
And that everyone, even a superstar, is ultimately shaped by their relationships and experiences.
Absolutely. And even in a deep dive like this, we're only getting a glimpse of that complex tapestry.
Right?
It's up to us to keep exploring, to ask questions, and to look beyond the surface to discover those hidden depths underneath.
Yeah, it's like we were handed this tiny little keyhole, and we got to peek into this whole world that we didn't even know existed.
Exactly. And, that's what makes exploring these narratives so rewarding.
It really is.
They remind us that history isn't just dates and events. It's about the lived experiences of these individuals, their relationships, and those unseen forces that shape their lives.
It makes you want to keep digging, and uncover all those hidden connections that really reveal that bigger picture.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our Graceland deep dive today, what final thought do you want to leave our listeners with?
I would say don't be afraid to question the narratives you think.
Seek out those firsthand accounts, those personal stories that offer a different perspective, because sometimes the most profound insights come from the least expected places.
That's so well said. And for anyone listening, if you haven't already, I highly recommend diving into the Memphis Mafia Kid YouTube channel. It's a treasure trove of stories and a great reminder that even icons like Elvis had lives filled with just as much complexity and joy and sorrow as the rest of us. Until next time, keep exploring and keep diving deep.